Hi, super scientists. We're looking at ocean chemistry, and you're going to be learning how to describe the different properties of ocean water. And we're looking at a couple different types of properties that relate to ocean water. So this is salt water since it's in the ocean. A couple of ways that scientists explore the ocean are using vehicles, underwater vehicles. Submersibles, your stem sub means under. Submersibles are underwater vehicles, and basically you can ride inside of a submersible. So this one's a submersible, this picture is a submersible, and this big dome shape here allows for scientists to have a good view underwater. Submersibles aren't used a whole lot anymore because they sometimes can be unsafe. For example, there's a lot of litter in the ocean from human activities and people polluting. And some submersibles have actually gotten caught on discarded fishing line, and the people trapped in the submersible ended up dying as a result of that. So they're not used a whole lot anymore, but they still are used some in certain areas. Remotely operated vehicles are used a lot. Those are abbreviated ROV, so ROVs. And when I've done ocean research on different exploration vessels, we've used ROVs. So basically, those are underwater robots. They're going to be operated from a ship. This is the first ROV that I used, and that's the Jason 2 from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And basically, the person that operates the ROV uses a little joystick. So, like you might have for a video game, and you just go backwards, forwards, so you can operate that just as you would a joystick on some kind of game. And this is a picture of me inside the control van, the ROV control van. And I was in charge of data monitoring, so inputting information about things that were observed while the ROV was in the water. So, you would have some kind of data points to refer back to as you were looking at your data and images and specimens that were collected later on. And this is the Medea. So that's the counterweight for the ROV, because you have the counterweight, the Medea that was up here, and then the ROV below it. And the counterweight, this Medea, basically would absorb shock from the ocean water so that the ROV could be pretty still, because the ROV is going to be attached to the ship through a fiber optic cable. So different properties of ocean that scientists have discovered. And look, this pie chart here is probably familiar. I bet it's on your note sheet. So the first one is salinity, and you know saline means salt. So the salinity is going to refer to the total amount of salt that's dissolved in water, and there's different types of salts that are in water. So you can see that in ocean water, in salt water, 96.5% of it is water, and then 3.5% is dissolved salt. It's some type of salt compound. These are the particular elements that are going to be involved in those different salts. So you can see that the majority of ocean water, the majority of the salt in ocean water is going to be made of two elements, sodium and chlorine. And this is listed as chloride because sodium and chlorine, they combine together to make sodium chloride, which is NaCl. So those are your primary compound, the sodium chloride, the primary compound that you're going to have in ocean water. You also have some sulfur, magnesium, calcium, potassium, and a few other little things that will combine generally with chlorine. Since chlorine is a halogen, yeah, group 17, it likes to combine with stuff, and generally it's going to combine with these guys. So magnesium chloride, calcium chloride, potassium chloride, so it will frequently combine with these to make salts during chemical reactions. So, the most abundant salt, as we are just looking at, is sodium chloride. So abundant just means it's when you're talking about the most abundant, it's going to refer to the one that's in the largest percentage, the largest amount that you have. And one example of a material that comes from is halite. So you can see these salt crystals in halite here. And if you lick this mineral, if you have a sample of halite and you lick it, it actually tastes salty. Don't ask me how I know that. The saltiness in the ocean is going to come from a couple different things. One is volcanic eruptions, and then also weathered rocks and minerals. So for example, if you have a lot of halite in the minerals that are around the rock in your area, then when it rains or when you have erosion taking place, some of that material, that salty halite, is going to get into the salt water, or going to get into the water, making it salty. For example, this is a picture from the Dead Sea. So that would be fresh water. However, it's going to have a high salinity because it has so much of this salt dissolved in it. It's got so much salt material in it that it gives it a really high salinity, and you can even just lay in it like this guy here is just laying in the water reading a newspaper, doesn't have to use life jacket or float or anything. So the salinity can fluctuate with a couple of different factors. Salinity can be lower at the mouth of a river. Remember, a river is going to be fresh water, just like a lake is going to be fresh water as well. It does not have salinity. It does not have salt in it. So it's not going to have any salinity. But at the mouth of a river, for example, here's this river dumping into the ocean, the salinity of the river in this area is going to be able to fluctuate. So why is that? So as the river is dumping water into this area, if you're going to have some different types of weather patterns, for example, that may cause the salinity to be lower. So if you have a lot of fresh water, for example, if you've had a lot of rain, a big storm, if you've had a flood, then that's going to cause extra fresh water to be poured from this river into the ocean in this area. If you've got melting ice, for example, from glaciers or icebergs, then that's also going to cause you to have lower salinity because it's like you're diluting that salt water. You're diluting the salinity of it. So it's going to cause more fresh water, which means that you have a lesser salinity, a lower salinity. Salinity is going to be higher. It's going to be saltier. The water is going to be saltier in areas where it's hotter due to evaporation. So in areas near the equator, primarily, you're going to have places that are going to have a higher temperature, so it will allow for the salinity to be increased. So as you have evaporation taking place, it's just the water that gets evaporated. The salt stays behind, so that salt's going to kind of accumulate even though the water molecules are heating up and getting evaporated. So that's why the areas around the equator, areas where it's really hot, doesn't necessarily have to be near the equator, are going to cause there to be higher salinity. And just for example, when I was in Belize, so that's down in Central America, it is closer to the equator, is super hot, like 100 degrees or more on most of the days that I was there during the summer. And you could just get in the water and you automatically floated. You didn't have to worry about using a float or a life jacket. You could just lay in the water and you floated. And that's because there was such a high salinity. There was so much salt content. The second one is temperature. So as you go further down in the ocean, a couple of things happen. One, it's going to get darker because there's not as much access to sunlight. So as you go further down at about 200 meters, you're not going to experience any more light. Not that you would be swimming down to 200 meters, but looking at the different properties of the ocean. So as you go further down in the ocean, it gets colder and darker, colder and darker, and colder and darker. The pressure also increases as well. So as far as the temperature goes, temperature is going to get colder. So as you go further down in the ocean, it gets colder and colder. And in some of the habitats that I've explored with ROVs, the temperature of the salt water has actually been right about freezing, like 2 degrees Celsius. Cold water can contain more dissolved oxygen than warm water. So when you have areas of colder water, that means the dissolved oxygen level is going to be higher. And the pressure is going to increase. So the pressure increases with depth. So that means the pressure gets more and more and more. And you're going further down in the ocean, it's get colder, darker, more pressure, colder, darker, more pressure as you continue going downward. An example you may have experienced before is if you have ever gone swimming, if you dive down to the bottom, particularly in the deep end where it may be 9 or 12 feet deep, as you go further down, diving down to the very bottom, your head may start hurting. You've got a lot of pressure on your head. It feels like your head's going to explode. That's because of pressure. So in fact, going downward into the ocean, things would not explode from pressure. Things would implode. They would squish. And I've got an example of a cup that I'm going to show you guys that is something that I sent down to the bottom of the ocean. So this is from this is actually the towed camera system from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And this was a cup that was about this tall, and due to pressure, it shrank and it smushed. So this styrofoam cup, it shrank and smushed, and now it's a super tiny little cup. and that's because it went down to the very bottom of the ocean where there's such high pressure. And the last thing is ocean gases. So the different types of gases in the ocean. The main gases you're going to have are carbon dioxide and oxygen. So how might you get carbon dioxide in the ocean water? How might you get oxygen? Great questions, Miss Owens. Thanks for asking. Algae. So algae are going to need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide, as you know, from breathing, carbon dioxide is going to come from animals. It's released as a byproduct of respiration, right, in the mighty mitochondria. So carbon dioxide is going to be generated during respiration in animals. So that provides the carbon dioxide needed for the algae and other aquatic plants. And cyanobacteria, blue-green bacteria that you have in the ocean as well. Oxygen is going to come from the plants and the algae. So that supplies a lot of the oxygen that animals, like fish, will need. So that oxygen that's needed for respiration for animals is going to come primarily from photosynthesis released as a product from plants and algae. There's a little bit of oxygen that gets dissolved into the ocean water from the atmosphere, but a lot of the oxygen is going to be produced during photosynthesis. So you should have everything on your 4.1 ocean chemistry notes. Thanks, guys.